Welcome to another edition of Social Media News Live. So excited that you guys are here with us today. We've got a great guest all the way from Puerto Rico. And it's so funny, Aaron, because we got this thing a while back that we grew up like a stone's throw from each other in a small town in Kansas, which is pretty amazing.
Right.
I mean, that's blew my mind.
Two smallest towns.
Right on Highway 20, was Highway 24, right? Yeah.
24.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Silver Lake, Rossville.
The war on 24.
Yeah. And we the thing is, in our little sports, it was like the biggest rivalry was Silver Lake and St. Mary's. So that's kind of funny. Anyway, enough about our childhood, but we are so glad that you guys are here with us today. We've got a great show. Aaron is here with us, and I've been wanting to talk to Aaron for a long time, not just because we grew up in Kansas, but because she's super smart about all this stuff. As always, we want to make this show about you, so make sure you guys ask your questions as we're going along today. We would love to bring up your comments and have Aaron with her super smart, superhuman abilities about social media to answer those questions for you. As always, make sure that you guys get reminded about the show by texting us at 903-287-9088. That's 903-287-9088. Helps us skip through these pesky algorithms, and we can remind you about the show. And we promise there's no spam or anything like that. It's all about conversation between us and letting you know about the show. So, Grace, how are you doing today? Love your new camera.
Thank you. I am great. I'm excited to be here. And so ready to get started.
All right. And as we're going, make sure that you sprinkle the love across the interwebs, let people know about the show. And also, if you're like, oh my gosh, I have a friend who's a podcaster and, all this social audio stuff, they really need to know about that. Feel free to mention them down below and call them into the show. Let's see. We've got Megan Powers, our friend Megan Powers, says, hey, I'm in Aptos, Santa Cruz area, headed to Big Sur for lunch and then back up to Santa Rosa. So road trip. Thank you for tuning in. Yeah, that sounds like you got a busy Friday. So that sounds fun, though. I'm just going to stay at home and watch Netflix. But anyway, I'm going to hit go on the old podcast machine here, and we will get started. You ready, Grace?
Yep.
All right, here we go. Welcome to Social Media News Live. I'm Jeff C., and you're not.
I'm Grace Duffy, and this is the show that keeps you up to date on what is happening in the world of social media. And today's show is brought to you by Restream. So that is the technology we're using to go live to Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Amazon Live. And you can go live to over 30 other online destinations. So find out more about that at socialmedianewslive.com/Restream.
That's right. And today we are joined by my friend Aaron Sell, and we're going to be talking about Facebook's new live audio rooms and podcasts. And we're going to explore Spotify's Green Room, the latest product launch they talked about that's taking on CLUBHOUSE. PODZ with a Z, a new podcast discovery tool, also now brought to you by Spotify since they acquired it recently. And Aaron's going to give us her tips for promoting your shows and podcasts and so much more. So glad that you guys are with us today. And another one of our sponsors that we cannot go without mentioning is the way we are doing this amazing show is with Ecamm, the way we can bring up lower thirds and all the cool stuff you see on your screen. You can find out more about them at socialmedianewslive.com/Ecamm. So if you don't know who Aaron Sell is, I can't wait to introduce you to her. She is a marketing and social media strategist, speaker, and podcaster. She is founder and CEO of Socially Powered, where she helps take the fear factor out of your small business or nonprofit social media management and strategy. And she hosts the Socially Powered Digital Marketing Show, a digital marketer's guide to emerging technology covering blockchain, cryptocurrency, and social media disruptions. Everything that I have no idea about. So I'm so excited. Aaron, welcome to the show today.
Thank you, guys. I'm so excited to be here. This is going to be awesome.
Cool. So the focus of today's show is mainly about audio and podcasting. So you have been a podcaster for quite some time. How long have you been podcasting, and what made you start?
Well, so I actually just started my own show. It's kind of a funny story. I started it right before social media marketing world not 20. Yeah, 2020. Would have been 2020. I'm like, what year is it? Which was the last conference, that we went to before the world shut down. But I started it thinking I would go to World and talk to everybody and record all these shows. And then I recorded 2 shows because I quickly realized that that's just not what I wanted to do at World. And one of those shows, because it was my very first time doing it, I recorded a great episode with Kim Garst and then didn't realize that I had the wrong switch turned on. And so I was using a Zoom handheld mic and I had 2, regular mics, but I didn't have the right switch turned on. So everything was recorded on the Zoom and not on the mics. And so you couldn't hear it. It sounded like crap. So, just one of those fun things that you learn when you're first getting started. I really only started my own podcast about 1.5 years ago, but I've been working with podcasts for about 4 years now. Started working with Joel Comm and Travis Wright on the Bad Crypto podcast. Originally started doing their social media for them. And then that turned into I was producing the podcast. And then basically now I do everything you can imagine for the podcast. So.
Yeah, and I don't think people realize how much goes into a podcast. A lot of people think, you just turn on a mic and start talking and it's done. But no, there's a lot.
I mean, you can do that. Yeah. You can do that. But.
Usually, there's some more, especially with the podcast you mentioned. I think it's still the top crypto podcast, if I remember right. I mean, it's way, way up there. So one of the things is, so podcasting has been around, a long time, but it feels like they've been around forever, but they're actually getting more mainstream notice recently. And we're going to talk about that a lot today. In an article by Deadline, it said the podcasting business used to be kind of considered the Wild West of the entertainment industry. But now mega deals such as, if you haven't heard about it, but like Joel Rogan's, $100 million deal with Spotify. And then Amazon recently had a $300 million acquisition of a Wondery show. So it's really quickly maturing. So, as these podcasting mega deals flourish, more of these A-listers are showing up. There's more potential for scripted stories and more opportunities. Ken, you kind of give us an overview of the current state of podcasting as you see it, Aaron?
Well, I definitely think that it has become more mainstream, whereas, I remember back in the day, 7, 8 years ago, maybe, since I'm here in Puerto Rico, I have to give a shout out to my buddy, John Lee Dumas, and Kate Erickson, for Entrepreneurs on Fire. And, I started to listen to John years and years ago, and, he's a pioneer in podcasting, and they actually just recently signed, I believe it's a 6-figure deal with HubSpot. So, it just goes to show that take something that was hardly anybody was doing and knew about. And, John had this idea that he wanted to listen to the top experts in his ears every day. And at the time, everybody was most podcasts were only going out like once or twice a week. And now everybody's on podcasts. And one thing I have found interesting due to COVID is that I have seen a lot of people that like in the celebrity space that have come out with their own podcasts. I know Dak Shepard was doing it before COVID, but Jason Bateman and Will Arnett and what's his name? The Smart List podcast. I believe that came out because of COVID, because they were all sitting at home and they were like, what can we do? Let's start a podcast.
Right.
So I definitely feel like podcasting has become more mainstream, especially because of, what is going on in the world today, and that you can't go out and, socialize like we used to. And, we were chatting before this went live about live events and how those are going to look going forward. So I feel like podcasting is a way to connect with others and, get the information that you want without having to be there in person.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people jumped on the podcasting bandwagon, and I still think there's we always think, oh, it's too late to get into YouTube or it's too late to get to podcasting. But I think there's room for everybody's voice, and there's a room for it. In fact, one of my favorite podcasters and live streamers, Jim Fuse, says, I'm watching over on Amazon too, because we are broadcasting, as Grace mentioned earlier, with Restream over to Amazon. And Jim, I tried to type to you on like hi on the app, but for some reason it's not letting me send messages, which is really weird. But anyway, so he's his show is kind of a new podcast, but they're doing really well. I want to do another shout out to Sabrina watching with us. Thank you, Sabrina, for watching and supporting us every week. But Grace, let's go ahead and talk about some of these kind of recent announcements that are kind of exciting, and I'm really interested to get Erin's take on this since she's been podcasting for so long. So why don't you break down the news for us?
Yeah, absolutely. So this week, Facebook rolled out live audio rooms. It was something they teased back in April. They were testing it out, I think, in Messenger groups. And they also rolled out podcasts as part of their plans to bring more social audio experiences to Facebook. So as of right now, only public figures and select Facebook groups in the US can create a live audio room on iOS, and then select podcasts will be available to listeners also in the US. So in the coming weeks, they are planning to expand this to more public figures, more groups, and will introduce new features on both of them. So I was reading more, as I was reading about this, I thought this was really a smart move, because a lot of social media sites, a lot of different products are rolling out a lot of different audio products. There's a lot of podcasting products, but this is the first time I've really seen someone integrate, or some company integrate both of them at the same time. What do you think, Erin, of Facebook's continued investment in new audio-only products?
Well, I might have a controversial answer here.
Go ahead. Go on. We want it. We want the different opinion.
I know, right? I feel like Facebook is that person that is just trying too hard. And it's like they want everything. They want it all. And I feel like, I don't know, there's a part of me that, I mean, I'm still on Facebook, but it's like they're doing this, they're doing that, they're doing this, they're doing that. And I want to see them focus on, what they do and do that part right, versus try to be everything to everyone. And I don't know. I will be really curious to see how long this lasts and if it actually takes off, because I really think that what will happen is, it'll be great for a little bit, and then it'll just go away in a few months, just like so many other things that Facebook has tried over the years.
So on that, Jim goes, "Amen, Erin, sell, preach it." So there's a lot of people who agree with you, and he also says they try to be all things to all people, which I agree. Here's the thing I was thinking about when Grace brought this to my attention, was that, I think a lot of these platforms, because to be honest, we're going to talk about it a little bit later, is like every platform is doing this social audio thing with that Clubhouse kind of pioneered. But it seems like, they all got kind of burnt on stories. So Snapchat came out with stories, and then there was all this delay, and they saw how big, and everybody was rushing to get stories, on their platform, the stories type of content. And it feels like they're going we're not going to be burned with that again. We're just going to go with social audio, even though nobody knows if it's going to stick around. But that's kind of how it feels to me. So a couple of things with, these live audio rooms. So they're supposedly you're able to listen, discover, and join live conversations, just like Clubhouse. Like Grace said, you can have public figures. You can have up to 50 speakers. Anyone can listen in. But this is the one thing that I really liked, is that it offers some cool tie-ins for those nonprofits and fundraisers, and the ability to support those with stars and stuff. And in fact, the article that I was reading says if you would go live as a nonprofit, I know you worked with nonprofits in the past, that you can actually have a ticker if you're trying to raise money. So I can see it, because there's so many eyeballs on Facebook. If a nonprofit went on there and said, "Hey, we're running, this thing, we're trying to, adopt a pet or whatever, raising, trying to raise $100,000. And you could actually see a graph during that live audio thing and bringing in guests and seeing that ticker grow while you're trying to get that spot. I think stuff like that is cool and has a place for nonprofits, but I agree with you that they're trying to be all things to all people. So what are your thoughts?
I definitely agree with you on the nonprofit side of things. I think that is one differentiator for them compared to the others. I know, you're talking about stories, and it's crazy to me how everybody does the copycat. It's like one person comes out with something and then everybody else has to do it. And I don't feel like I don't know. It's just it's the copycat effect. And how do you then, as a consumer or user of those products, how do you then determine what is the best place for you to be when there's so many different options? I know for me, for example, I used to be on Snapchat and I did stories, but I don't even know if I have access to my Snapchat anymore. I would do stories on Instagram, and then, sometimes I would share them to Facebook. I still do stories on Instagram, but I really only do it on my personal page. I do think they're great though for podcasts, to share bits and clips of, whatever you're like, if you have a new show coming out or you have a really interesting interview or, just a great clip from a show. And I think it's a great way for getting new listeners and getting the word out there about a podcast. But I feel like there's just so much clutter out there with all these different options that it makes it impossible for you as a business owner, as a podcaster, as just a regular old person, being on social media. There's just so many options available.
Yeah, I want to bring up some comments here from Scott Ayers. He goes, Facebook wants to be the mall where they have everything you need in one place, so you'll hang out there instead of going to store. Yeah, we would ditch the guy with the orange hair at the mall, Scott. But Gary says this: I see Facebook as a feed-based medium. I can't see myself dwelling on a whole podcast episode on Facebook. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. And Jim goes, is social audio also known as the conference call? Yeah, that's what it pretty much is. But here's the thing, and I'm wondering if this will happen. So you mentioned it a little bit, Aaron, about you're going to have to really know where your audience is. And that's where I think this makes sense, is like, okay, if you know most of your audience is on Facebook, then it makes sense for you to, push it out or do in a social audio room there. I'm wondering as these develop and we continue to grow, if it's going to be different segments. Because I can see Spotify, which we'll talk about in a minute, with their audio room, that would be more based for musicians or something like that. Twitter is for people who are angry. I don't know. Their Twitter spaces would be there. And then the Facebook spaces would be for grandma. I don't know. But I can see it being right. The demographics, kind of splitting in that way. And maybe that would make sense. But it once again comes down to, knowing your audience. So
100% agree with that.
Yeah. So Grace, you actually, you have this, you were going to talk about you saw Mark Zuckerberg, and this is how excited you were about it. So talk about that.
Oh my God. Well, to Erin's point, the point that she's making. So I saw Mark Zuckerberg testing this. I think it was late last week or something. And he had on this live audio room on Facebook. But as usual, I was on Facebook doing something else. And I didn't even stop to see what it was about. And so I was going to ask you, I think you already answered this really, was do you think audio rooms on Facebook stand a chance when the platform is already so busy? And I'm with you, Erin. I think it's just there's just too much going on there.
Well, I just want to add, I don't know about you guys, but I know how I listen to podcasts, and I have intention when I do it. There's certain things that I'm doing when I listen to a certain podcast. I just don't feel like I would ever go to Facebook to look for a podcast when that's just not what I do. I actually the majority of my podcasts I listen to on Spotify. And I don't know why that is. It's just that for me, Spotify it's simple. It's got like a nice design. It's, if I don't want to listen to a podcast, then that's where I'm listening to music. So it just makes the most sense in my brain to listen there. I feel like iTunes or Apple Podcasts, whatever it's called now, I feel like it's clunkier and not as easily to, like find what you're looking for all the time. I don't know. Spotify is just it's my jam for podcasts.
So it's really interesting.
I think everybody has their own preference there.
Yeah, so I think that's interesting because, like, my friend, who's been a co-host before, Eric Fisher, he listens to a lot of podcasts at like 1.5, 2 times speed. I can't do that.
Oh yeah, so do I.
I can't.
I do too.
I hear of Chickmucks and them singing Christmas songs every time I try to do that. I can't do it. So, and
it depends on the person, I think. Like who's speaking.
Yeah.
If you can or
I've
can't.
been told that listening, because I talk so fast anyway, that listening to me like past one is painful. So
Right.
I've had to learn how to slow down.
Yeah. So let's talk about this podcast thing that you just mentioned, Aaron. And so, like, here's what's rolling out with this being able to have. I'm hearing an echo. Does somebody have their thing up really loud? I'm hearing some sort of echo. Is that me?
I have headphones.
All right, we're good.
I can put headphones in.
What? It's probably really cavernous right now in the man cave. The thing that these podcasts are rolling out is that people are going to be able to listen to these podcasts while they're on Facebook with this like mini player or a full screen player experience. They can have their phone display turned off and listen to podcasts. So they can listen to their podcasters on their Facebook pages as well as their news feed. And they also have a pact with Spotify to integrate this, their audio player on the Facebook app too. So it's kind of weird to me that they're partnering with a competitor, but and this is a question that I think is real.
Facebook going to buy Spotify next?
Oh gosh, maybe. But this is a good point because here's what Megan says: perhaps Facebook podcasts will be good for discoverability. Now, that was the thing.
Yeah.
Because we brought up the beginning of the show, we have all these A-listers and all these celebrities and all of these people. And it used to be Apple Podcasts was the place you'd have to get on the the new and noteworthy and all this stuff. Discoverability has started to become a problem for a lot of people or a lot of new podcasts. Something like this makes me a little bit excited that there's another place that we might be able to discover podcasts a little bit better. And we all know Facebook, when something rolls out, they prioritize it in the feed and all that kind of stuff. And so one of my clients actually got the email for their rolling out to select users for this, and it looks pretty cool. So, Aaron, let's say for your clients and your podcasting, will you use Facebook to stream the podcast as another destination?
That is a good question, and I'm going to need to think about it. I mean, honestly, for us, it's a little bit different because of what we podcast about. We get in trouble on Facebook all the time for talking about cryptocurrency, and they're not great about promoting that. I mean, it seems to be fine now. I guess my big question here would be, are the little guys going to get lost if they're, they always roll it out to the blue check marks and the celebs first. Mm-hmm. So are they going to get all the exposure around this? And then, I mean, like I said before, how long is this really going to last? Is it going to last long enough for the little guys to actually see any successes from this?
Interesting.
I don't know. What do you guys think?
Well, I think you have a good point because, I mean, even now, even now, they've just rolled it out very exclusively to a select number of podcasts, like these hand-selected podcasts. And it is funny that you mentioned that they are not very good about your cryptocurrency app, because weren't they launching their own cryptocurrency? Like, I wonder if that has something to do with it.
Yeah, and so they were for a minute, and then they
forgot.
They backed up. This was like when everything, Mark was going to the trials and facing all kinds of issues. And so I think they walked it back on Libra was what it was called. Mm-hmm. And then I believe that they are still working on something else now, and they've changed the name. In fact, oh my gosh, who was I? I was talking to somebody the other day, and she had done like a bunch of research and talked to 2 women at Facebook that are working on the new project. I can't remember what the name of the new cryptocurrency is. And what's really funny about that is they were being really tough on us, and like they've shut down our pages, they've shut down our Instagram. We have to fight to get it back. And when they were really big on the crypto stuff, then we weren't having any problems with getting ads approved or anything like that. And then when that all kind of went away, then it started again, where it was like, oh, our page is, in trouble again. And we don't even post, like, we're not out there shilling projects or trying to get people to buy stuff. It's more news and interviews, talking to people that are doing things in the industry. So it's interesting to me that we get in trouble for stuff like that when there's other people out there that are doing the things that are, invest in this project, buy this, do that. And I don't know. Facebook is an interesting beast for sure.
So I wanted to bring up some more comments. Ian says, great to say Aaron on with the gang. And Dustin says this. He says, that's an interesting phenomenon. Is it becoming harder for non-celebrities to break out with new features they rolled out to celebrities first? So I think that is very interesting too. And I think there is a good point about that. One of the things I'm excited about, I'm going to go with the glass half full kind of thinking, is that I like another destination that I'll be able to stream my podcast to. And it's going to through the RSS feed. They'll be able to do that. I'll be able to cut out clips easier and share them with my audience, which I think will be good for discoverability. And also, and this goes back to an article Tom Webster wrote a while back, and he was talking about how we need to change our call to action with podcasts instead of going subscribe to our podcast, because that makes people think that it costs something. And you go and do a poll right now, and a lot of people still to this day think podcasts cost money. And so back to the Facebook thing, being able to stream that to this older demographic, I would think, on Facebook, I think it's going to open it up, because people, like my parents, don't know how to use a podcast app. They don't know Apple, the Apple podcast app and Overcast and all those, but they know how to use Facebook. And so that's my hope in thinking that it's going to open up an audience to, if all I have to do is log into Facebook and click play and they can hear my podcast, that might be a good thing for the smaller podcasters. That's just what I'm hoping. So anyway, that's
true. And I would add, as long as it's easy for you to get your podcast on there, right? Like, I mean, there's so many, especially like just when you're starting a new podcast. I mean, think about all the different places you already have to submit and, go through the process of getting your podcast listed on I can't even think of all, right. There's obviously the main ones: Google Play, iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, CastBox, Stitcher. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And so now you add in Facebook. Are we going to have to do anything different for like the Spotify green rooms? Like,
right.
I don't know. There's it always takes me back to can you do it all in all the places? And by doing it all or putting it out there in all the places, are you getting anything in return for that? Is it worth the effort that you're putting into it?
Yeah, I think it's what's going to happen with this is since it's an RSS feed and you're not going to have to upload anything. I'm assuming that all the big players, the podcast hosts, let's say Libsyn, Blueberry, Simplecast, which we use, is that you just go to another destination and it just does it automatically. If Facebook's smart, that's how easy they're going to make it to do. And if that is so, then I go back to what I said before. Is like, yeah, this will be great for another place. There's a lot of eyeballs on here. And if my mom can play my podcast and listen to it and just put it in her pocket, that's going to be a win for me, because mom is like amazing. So, but anyway, so let's go. You mentioned the Spotify thing, the green room. So Grace, talk about this, because once again, this is kind of a cool thing, but once again, we've heard this song before.
Yeah, it's another live room and podcasting integration, but this time from Spotify, which is actually partnering with Facebook. So this is extra confusing. I don't know if we're talking about a competitor or the same thing. Anyway, so they recently acquired a new mobile app, or they rolled out and launched a new mobile app called Spotify Green Room, and it allows anyone worldwide to join or host a live audio room and optionally turn those conversations into podcasts. I would imagine that this is also a good way to promote your podcast, maybe an after show or a pre-show, perhaps. I'm not sure. And they're also announcing a creator fund that'll help fuel the new app for more content in the future, which is something I know TikTok does it a lot, where they'll launch a new product and then rather than inviting celebrities necessarily, they will just create a creator fund so that smaller productions or smaller creators can just also use the new technologies. They're not just rolling it out to people that are already popular. So interesting is Spotify Green Room is now live on both iOS and Android across 135 markets around the world. Spotify itself is actually in 178. So I wonder which ones were excluded, but it's only available in English right now with plans to expand as it grows further. So, this is being called their Clubhouse rival. Now, I keep reading about the decline of Clubhouse as people are getting out more. It seemed to be this really great thing for when people were stuck at home. Do you think this decline has more to do with other social media apps launching, or is social audio not really where it's at? Or, and I personally only ever really hear about Twitter Spaces and Clubhouse as the two big places. But I think last time we talked about this, there were 35 other companies doing this too, Jeff?
Yeah.
Anyway, Aaron, I'd love to get your opinion on this.
Wow. I don't think I even knew that there were 35 companies doing the live audio type things. So I'll go back to, when Clubhouse first came out. Many of you or may not know, but I've been in the middle of a transition like this whole year. I feel like moving from Colorado to now I'm in Puerto Rico, but it was a process. And Clubhouse came out like during the beginning of that process. And so it was just something that I just didn't have the time or energy to look into it. I would get on there and like listen to a few things, you'd get invited to join rooms and all that. We did with the Bad Crypto podcast, try to do it. They started a show. The plan was we were going to do Thursday nights. It was going to be like an extra show for, followers and, fans of the show to come on and we'd interview people and talk to people and all that. But I think the guys did it 2 times and then we had a conflict for the time, 1 week and then again the next week and then it just went away. And I think that's the hardest part about not just Clubhouse, but any of this live audio stuff. I mean, it's like anything you do live, if you can't do it consistently, then you tend to lose that, the pressure,
Momentum?
the motivation
Yeah.
to keep going. It's like the ball rolling down the hill, right? You pick up speed and acceleration. And when you stop that, then it's like full stop, right? And you have to get started again. And I also think that there is burnout. There's burnout not only from like the creator side of things, but burnout from the people that are listening. Like there's only so much time in the day. And I mean, I'll be very honest with Clubhouse. Like I had it on, and I was getting notifications. Right. I had to turn everything off because it was just like ding, 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 right. Ding, ding, like all day long. Everybody's going live and inviting you. And like, who has time for that? Like I have actual work to do.
Right. And a life to lead.
So
yeah. You were saying, we were talking about that before the show. You're just like, who has time for all of this? I don't. I mean, like, right. I do this show and then I go take a nap. I mean, like,
I'm napping right now, actually.
You're napping right now.
So it's a skill that I have. So Sabrina goes, right, you can't be everything to everyone. And Ian goes, I'm looking forward to MySpace audio rooms. So let me know how that works out for you.
Oh, me
Ian.
too. Me too. I can't wait.
And this is true. He also says it's one of the big barriers I had with Clubhouse. Just haven't had the time. So but we've had Ramon Ray on, and he is integrated into his strategy and his networking. So listen. I built my business on Google Plus, and the relationships that I made there continue to benefit my business today. So I'm not knocking anybody who's used these audio platforms and really got value from them, because I think you can do that with wherever, like Aaron was saying, where you show up consistently. It's just like it's everywhere. And I'd like to know if you guys are continuing to use Clubhouse. You guys are in the audience watching right now. I know Dustin is big on Twitter Spaces. Is that still growing for you, Dustin? Is that still a thing that you see continuing? I really think it may be something that, like, we have that, like Grace mentioned, like pre-conference or post-conference. Like, let's get on, Clubhouse as we're going to San Diego, and let's meet up and do a meetup with the crypto podcast people, and let's do a meetup and use it for communication and stuff like that. I think that might be a tie-in. I think it just once again depends on where your audience is at, because you cannot be everywhere all the time, especially like Aaron said with live stuff. I mean, it's hard. I mean, this show, luckily with Restream, we're able to go everywhere, and I can pull in comments from everywhere because the technology. But Clubhouse, you can't really do that. It's like you're there, it's off, it's over, it's done. If you missed it, too bad.
I mean, the good thing about it is you don't have to do hair and makeup. You don't have to shower. I could be doing it from the beach and nobody would know the difference. I was also going to add, I think there are things that you could do with these live audios, Clubhouse, Spotify, whatever it is, that really help foster the fans of your podcast. And I don't know if there's a way to do that, what I'm thinking, but I'm thinking if there's a way to somewhat segment your audience so that the true fans and followers get it's like bonus content, added content, that it's more for, the people that really love your show and they just can't get enough of you. And so it's like an added bonus that they get this on top of what you normally put out there. So if there's a way for them to, I think, offer that, I think that could be really interesting especially for podcasts that, let's say you have like a really big name guest on and you record the show, but then after the show you do a Clubhouse and you have that guest on and people are able to come in and actually, ask questions of that person. That would be like a nice bonus, right?
Yeah, I think that ability to have access to those people, and a lot of people don't want to get live on camera because they have to get, but they would go on audio. So an example that I love to use is like the podcast I produced for Guy Kawasaki. He got on Clubhouse and he had one of his guests, which was Jane Goodall, and I was able to get on the stage with Jane Goodall. That was a big deal for me. And so that kind of stuff where people in the audience can ask questions of Guy and Jane, that's a big thing to do. And using it in that way, I think you're spot on. So I really think that's interesting. And so Dustin, I asked the question about Twitter Spaces. He goes, I've not been using Spaces as much as I would like, but that's because he's on building behind the scenes mode. But he does see Spaces thriving for creators who are taking advantage of it. So just like what we were talking about, that access, I think, is good. And then
let's
Jim.
Highlight,
let's
highlight Jim's quote and then Megan.
Yeah, so he goes, I think Twitter Spaces and Green Room will work better for conferences than Clubhouse. Green Room lets the audience chat if not on stage. That's a key point. Thanks, Jim. That's really important. Spaces also allows audience reaction and brands can participate. And I believe the Green Room will allow you to actually record that conversation as a podcast later, which is another big deal, especially for podcasters. So if you're on Spotify as one of your destinations and you can do this as well, I think it's pretty cool. And then Megan, she goes, I just did a talk on using audio to add impact to your events. So I'm onto something, because if Megan's doing it, then I must be smart.
Right.
So,
So that the Spotify Green Room stuff really, that is sparking my interest. Like I'm going to go, when we get done with this, I'm going to go look into that some more, because I think that could be really beneficial for the Bad Crypto podcast. Just because they definitely oftentimes we have the bigger names that our fans are like, oh man, I'd love to, be able to ask so-and-so a question. And that could be really cool just to have them in the green room with the speaker. So.
Yeah. So Gary says he likes Twitter Spaces. Oh, he's from over on YouTube. Thanks for watching over there, Gary. He says, I like Twitter Spaces better than Clubhouse. Why do you like it better, Gary? I'd love to know why you like Twitter Spaces better than Clubhouse.
I can tell you why I like it better, Gary, is that I've been on Twitter for over a decade now, right? Because I was on it when it first launched, and I've already established a community there. So it doesn't feel like, at least in my opinion, it doesn't feel like I'm building something new or from scratch. I'm already on there. So perhaps you feel the same way, but I'd love to hear why you like it better.
Yeah, Gary says he can share the tweets. That's what's really cool.
Yes.
And you can bring up tweets in there. And Dustin has another great point. He goes, with every new feature platform, he gets more bullish on sticking to one or two platforms. Audience fracture is a big problem. So I know Aaron talked about that a little bit. And
I'm with you, Dustin.
And Sabrina says, I would love a replay of any audio room instead of missing it forever. That is my that was my whole thing when Snapchat stories, I mean, the 24-hour stuff went away. I mean, I get it but I'm just like, man, I'm a repurposing nut. And so it's hard for me to let content go. It just really is, especially if you get a good guest.
And let's just talk about that for a second, because that is something that irritates me so much. I can't tell you how many times on Instagram stories somebody like tags me or sends me something and then I can't see it because I don't go look at Instagram. Right. I don't go look every day. I mean, I look pretty much every day at most but sometimes I don't. Sometimes it's, oh my gosh, 36 hours that I haven't opened my Instagram account. Right. And so then I miss it. And I'm like, what was that? Because I totally missed it.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. You know, something I never miss, though, is stuff from my friends over at Ecamm. So what a great segue for that. So that's how we're doing this show and bringing up all these cool comments that we've had from Sabrina, Gary, Dustin, and all the people watching live, is that I'm able to build this show any way I really want to. It's so customizable. You guys really need to go check that out. Go find out more about my friends over at Ecamm at socialmedianewslive.com/Ecamm. That's socialmedianewslive.com/Ecamm. But wait, there's more, just like from Ronco. The amazing thing, what Ecamm does what, Grace? Tell us.
Works well with Restream like peanut butter and jelly. There's no better way to distribute that content you are creating than with Restream, especially if you're doing live video, audio, and podcasting as part of your marketing strategy. So with Restream, where we are distributing the show right now, we get a live recording of this video just automatically as part of our pro account. And then we also get just the audio and then even split track audio. So if I'm insanely loud or I talk insanely fast, you can adjust my audio as you're editing it. But usually we just take the content and, put the beginning and the end to it, the intro, outro, and distribute it because it is that easy. So everything from custom branding to multi-streaming to over 30 online destination, and then also being able to repurpose all of that content you're creating, because I too am a repurposing advocate. I am a repurposing evangelist. So find out all about how to get started with Restream at socialmedianewslive.com/Restream.
So there we go. See, and Dustin goes, brilliant transition. So yeah, so Dustin remembers back in the day, because he's, like I mentioned, Google Plus. He's one of my pals from over there. And remember back in the day, it was hard to go live and do comments was a thing. You could only pull comments from one spot, but you can do it from all these different places now on Restream. And so as Sabrina goes, leave no content behind. I think that is a great, you need to trademark that. That is great. Or make a t-shirt, Sabrina, because I would buy that. So
I'd wear that t-shirt on this show.
That's right. We would. So this next segment, our final segment today, is once again some more Spotify news. They acquired this company called PODZ. And so they are a podcast discovery specialist, and it's a startup that uses machine learning technology to generate preview clips of podcasts. So, as podcasters, we often use apps like Headliner to create clips on and promote on their social media accounts. And what PODZ does, it kind of follows the same idea. Since, most podcasts are upward of 30 minutes long, it's really hard for listeners to browse those new shows. So listening to an episode of a podcast isn't, that easy as like going through Spotify and just like clicking on a new artist or something somebody recommends. So this acquisition is aimed at improving podcast discoverability, which we've talked about before. It lets users browse short clips rather than 30-minute plus podcast episodes. Spotify says it's going to make it easier for listeners to find the content they want to listen to, and for creators to be able to be discovered and build a fan base. So Pod told TechCrunch that users on its platform usually only follow up to, they typically they follow up to 30 podcasts, and the average is 7. So just by using this platform, it seems like the people are discovering podcasts and following them at a higher rate than before. So what I love about this is this instant promotional material for your podcast and helps listeners find their way to you. So Aaron, I was going to ask you, I know we talked about Headliner. Is there anything else that you like to use to promote your podcast? Because it's getting more and more crowded out there, and this is more and more important.
Well, my question actually comes back to you because I'm curious. So how are they doing like, because you like this, you might like that, or are they just randomly generating what you may or may not like, as far as what they're serving up to you?
So what I was I went to try to download the app when I saw this, because I'm always looking for tools that'll help me promote my podcast. There was another one that did a stories-like one that was really good until they updated it, and then it was kind of broken. But you can't download it now because Spotify said they're going to integrate this into their platform later in the year. But from what I understand is you'll be able to, it'll help, instead of having to randomly listen to a podcast, it's going to serve you up almost like, what's that service that like shortens books that you can go and Blinkist. It's kind of like Blinkist, but maybe for podcasts, where you can listen to those and it's going to give you recommendations that you like. And then you'll also be able to take those podcasts that you're already subscribed to and clip them up and send them out, just like we talked about Facebook's supposed to be able to do with theirs. So anything that lets me do that easily on my phone, I'm all for, because
I agree.
Headliner's great, but as a workflow, having to download something, upload it, clip it up, and then download it again, it just is like watching paint dry for me. And so something that's easy on an app.
I definitely use Headliner. And one of the things that I find frustrating is even when you have it set up to like auto do your videos, you can't adjust anything. They're like, oh, that's coming down the line. But like, I want to be able to change those images and do something with it. So I definitely use Headliner for the videos, for, YouTube and for all the socials.
Right.
And then I also I haven't been using it as much lately, but in video, I use for stories. For story creation, because then I can, take quotes and I can change the images and make it just looks better for stories. One of the things that we do a lot of is we actually use a lot of different, I guess you would call them alternative social media platforms. So we do a lot in Telegram and Discord. And Discord is one that we've actually been really focusing a lot on. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with it or have seen it or have it.
Yeah.
But you can segment out, your groups, and you can give people different access to different things. And this is just a side story, but we have, for the Bad Crypto podcast, we call them badassadors. And they help us just like curate content, and they'll post interesting stuff that they see. And we just had somebody who was a very well-known figure in cryptocurrency. I'm sure it was trending on Twitter, but John McAfee, the founder of McAfee, antivirus software, died. And so one of the things, he was on our show 4 times, and I was like, oh, we should do a tribute show, and pull some of the best clips from his shows. And I'm like, oh my God, thinking about that as the producer of the show, I'm thinking that's a minimum of 5 hours work just to listen to those shows and find, the good clips. Right. So instead of me having to do all that, we put it out to our badassadors, And they were like, yeah. And so I had all these notes. They went and listened to the shows, put time spots where he said something great. And now all I have to do is go pull those and put it together. So the point of that is that, there's alternative social medias that you can be using differently than, the traditional Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn platforms.
So if somebody,
I think,
go ahead. You think
if your audience is willing and able, we have a different audience because it's, cryptocurrency and they're into other types of conversations, I guess.
So if people don't know what Discord is, it's almost, I would describe it as almost like Slack for gamers. I think that's where it kind of came from. I mean, it kind of looks a lot like Slack.
Good explanation.
And the cool thing is a lot of gamers they communicate with their audience with Discord, but a lot of live streamers use Discord as another thing. So and I know because I know about all the Reddit and the Wall Street bets and all that stuff, they use Discord a lot as well, and so it makes perfect sense that your audience would be using that. So once again, we've talked about this throughout the show, is knowing your audience and where to go and all that stuff. So that's awesome. One of the things about this PODZ that I think is really interesting, and if you read the article, it talks about the machine learning, and I think that's the key of why Spotify got it. So what I'm envisioning what would happen is to help discoverability is that it goes through and listens to Erin's amazing tips that she's given on the show and has found it like a 30-second clip and plays that because it knows that this audience likes that kind of conversation. And so that's how it's helping with this machine learning, these podcasts get discovered. And so just like we mentioned at the top of this segment, that it goes, most people follow 7 and they were following up to 30 because of this. So I think it's going to suggest things you want to hear, and then you're just going to be able to, you'll be able to connect with those people that way. So I'm kind of excited about it. Spotify, anything that gives Apple some competition, I think is a big deal. Mm-hmm. I think it's a real big deal because it's, they've had it for so long that, they're going to have to step up their game a little bit. So anyway.
Absolutely. Well, and it's funny because Spotify just started off as a music service, right? Mm-hmm. I remember when it first launched here in the US, it was just music, and now it's expanded to podcasts, and it is people's podcast distribution choice. I know everyone has their favorite, but I like Spotify a lot for that.
Yeah.
So this integration is just a no-brainer to me. Absolutely.
Right. So Erin, last question before we wrap things up. So let's say you're onboarding a new client and they want to have a podcast. What are some tips that you're going to do to help them get their podcasts, quote, discovered?
Oh, that's a good question. So first thing, we talked about this a little bit earlier, but making sure that you actually get your podcast out there on all the different platforms. And I think there's like 1 million now.
Right. Yeah.
But then the other, obviously, these are all just general tips because you should be doing this for any business. It doesn't even matter if it's a podcast or, a brick and mortar or online services or whatever. And that is whatever the name is, make sure that you can get that name and be consistent across all the social media platforms. I can't tell you how often I see businesses that have, on Facebook, their one name, and then on Twitter, there's something else because it's not available. And it's just think about those things before you decide on your name, or figure out whatever, fits within the character limits you have that will work across all platforms, because there's nothing. And I find this one of the things I get the most frustrated with as a social media and podcast person, because I'm often working with other companies and I need to tag them. And when they have all these different names on different platforms, it's so hard because you can't, you don't have an easy way on the, when you're talking to somebody recording, you can't say, for example, you can find me everywhere at Socially Powered. That is, I'm at Socially Powered on all the social media platforms. And if I was at Socially Powered on one, and then I'm, I don't know, Get Socially Powered or something like that, then it just makes it so confusing to find you online if you don't have the same name. So that's, you know, easy things. I mean, there's obviously a ton of other things that you can do. And that is, you know, ask your friends and family when you're just getting started out to listen, to share, to subscribe, to review. You know, the more reviews, the more listens you have, especially reviews. They like to reward you, and, you know, you move up the ranks for, you know, if you have a lot of good reviews. Putting the clips out there, you know, doing the take, you know, 30-second spots or a minute spots and sharing them on stories. And, you know, if you have the budget, maybe put some ad spend behind that on Facebook and Google or Twitter or wherever it is that you're, you know, focusing your
right
social media and, you know,
yeah,
announcing the podcast.
Yeah, getting it out there so people know about it, I think, is key. And so, by the way, that's a perfect segue that it would be really great if you guys would go to Apple Podcasts, find Social Media News Live, give us a rating and review, because we need it. Yeah, thank you for that. That was a perfect little softball there. So Dustin says this. He goes, he has so much respect for Spotify evolving their business. He says, I don't use it, but he respects how they have evolved from just a music streaming service. And he also went, yes, consistent naming across all the things, because
yes,
we all who have done any sort of social media marketing feel your pain, Aaron, when they was like, what are they now? They're this and the what? And anyway, so with that, but we don't want to end the show without, Aaron, you giving a little plug for yourself. Where can people find you, your shows, everything? Where can people find out more about you?
Well, I already said it, but at Socially Powered, you can find me anywhere. My website is sociallypowered.com, and I'm on all the socials at Socially Powered. My podcast, I would love it if you guys want to go take a listen. Jeff mentioned at the beginning of the show, it's all about blockchain, cryptocurrency, and digital marketing. It is the Socially Powered Digital Marketing Show, and you can find that on, you know, all your favorite podcast players and on my website, sociallypowered.com.
Yep. And if you're looking for Aaron, it's spelled ERINCELL. So you can also, and Socially Powered, of course. Yeah, like a cell phone. Very, very good. So thanks, Aaron, so much for being here today. Thank you guys for watching. Our next show is on Friday, July 2nd at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, 10 a.m. Central. You can find us always at Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Amazon Live. And don't forget, you can also text us at 903-287-9088. Get on our calendar. Get past all these pesky algorithms and actually get reminded by the show. No spam, just directly into my little mobile device, and would love for you guys to do that as well. Thank you guys so much. Grace, thank you for being here with us today. Where can people find you? Because you're everywhere as well.
I am. You can actually find me over at the Restream community over at Facebook. Love for you to join. Everyone from beginners to pros on there talking about how to get started with live streaming. You can just find that by searching Restream community over on Facebook. And then I'd also like to invite you to join us over at the Restream YouTube channel, where we have a whole lineup of shows all about the business of live streaming.
And yeah, Grace is all in charge of that now. So don't forget, helping our sponsors helps us as well. So make sure you guys go check out socialmedianewslive.com/eCam, who helps produce this show. And we've already mentioned Restream. It's an amazing way to go live in all the places all at the same time. So check them out at socialmedianewslive.com/Restream. With that, we'll see you guys next week. Appreciate it, y'all. Bye now.
Everyone. Bye.
Thanks, guys.
And the podcast is over, but we're still live. Thank you all. Sabrina, thank you for showing up every week. She goes, thank you, Aaron. I appreciate you. Thank you, Dustin, for stopping by. And Aaron coming. What time is it in Puerto Rico? I don't even. What's the time difference in Puerto Rico?
It's 12.
Oh, okay. That's not bad.
They're an hour ahead of us. Okay. So yeah, cool. I had to look that up.
Yeah.
For now, in the fall, it will be 2 hours because we're Atlantic Standard and we don't change times. Like we don't do the.
Oh, okay.
So.
Awesome. Yeah, what did you say, Grace? I'm sorry. I interrupted you.
I said I wish we didn't have to do that. Abolish daylight savings. I want one time.
Yeah, I just think we should just say we sleep till noon and just that across the board, and we'll be done. So, All right, folks. Thank you guys. Aaron, thank you for your time today. Appreciate you doing this for us. Thank you guys once again for the audience. You make it all worthwhile. Thank you, Dustin. Thank you, Sabrina. I've already said all that. But Gary, for stopping by over at YouTube. Jim, make sure you guys go check out Jim's show at Dealcasters. Amazing Amazon Live show. And, of course, my friend Ian Anderson Gray does all sorts of things for Restream and live show extraordinaire. So with that, we'll see you guys. Have a great Friday. See you next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.